Korea and Japan are just so close to each other. And then well, some people say they are just similar, but as far as what I felt as a language learner and teacher back in Korea and as a language teacher here in Japan, there are some common threads, but there are subtle differences between those two countries. So it will be wonderful to delve into those differences and then also research more about that. So in this like sort of 5 minute turn, I'm going to talk about those three ideas that I felt. So all of them are my really rough ideas. So just feel free to add anything. The first one is about the standardized English tests. If you are either teaching in Japan or Korea, then you might have felt the like paramount social importance put in the TOEIC test. And then also the second thing is motivation to study or work abroad. And then the last thing is about alpha education. So let me just talk about the first idea first. And then like as you might have felt, the social economic importance of TOEIC is just paramount in both countries. And then back in Korea, when I was back in Korea, I did a like survey of 252 job seekers. I mean juniors or seniors in college. And then sorry, this is 2020 19. And then well, we found that there are like the sorry, let me see if I can scroll. I zoom in. Okay. So the South Korean job seekers perceive the TOEIC as a gate. Oh, sorry, it just floats around gate job skill or like it's a skill of diligence. It measures your diligence and perseverance rather than the TOEIC like English skills and things like that. And also here in Japan, like the TOEIC test is used everywhere. And then here in our university, we also have the TOEIC requirement as well. But there is a subtle difference that I found. So these are the links to the official websites of TOEIC. And then what I found was, back in Korea, like at least like 700, 870, like 700, 790, and things like that. And these are like sort of a must for the job seekers to apply for to something like any kind of opportunities. But like back in Japan, it's like the standard is a little lower. It says it's 600. And then like even though it's per month, I felt like like I felt like here in the Japan, they are less concerned about the TOEIC tests, but more concerned about the speaking skills or things like that. So I wasn't really sure where those differences coming from, and then it will be like interesting to talk about them. And then the second one was motivation to study and work abroad. And then one thing I found really interesting was that like back in Korea, when I was like a college student, everyone was like crazy about going abroad and getting like exchange student opportunities. But here in Japan, the schools are pushing the students hard to send them abroad, but students are reluctant to go abroad. And I thought it was like really interesting, like stark difference between those two countries. Then there has been the studies on motivation to study or work abroad, and then like this one has been really spotlighted back like a decade ago. To you have early study abroad, like really young kids go abroad to learn English and just to speak native like pronunciation. But actually nowadays, not many people talk about Chugi Yuha because like the number of uh, I'm not very sure the reason why, but maybe because the social importance put in English has been going down a little lower than the before, and that was sort of interesting. But no one has been talking about it yet. And then here in Japan, like there has been studies on like female language learners who wants to study English to go abroad because of their akogare, which means term for like they want to learn English because they have a like romanticization of the English speaking countries or like whatnot. But at the same time, there has been another studies saying that like they are overrepresented. So here is that like really this is really like recent book. And in this book, she's saying that like another group of Japanese women who study like foreign languages just for fun or some other purposes, they're overshadowed by these acrobatic driven people. So like I thought it would be interesting to talk about these differences too. And then the last one is alpha education. Let me just make it brief because I think I'm running out of time. And well, in both countries, they both belong to expanding circle, but it seems like the discussion of alpha is like well more going on in Japan than in Korea. So I thought like what enables Japan to talk about health issues more than Korea? That was also interesting, like sort of points out departure for me. Okay, so that's all for me. Like I think I'm 5 minutes sharp. Okay, so thank you, and then let's talk about it later. Yeah, let me stop. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, so shall I just jump right in? Is that okay, Dawn? Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Erin Suzuki, and I am actually in a little bit different context probably. I work for a high school, and it's just teaching under my thing, but mainly what we were doing, the collaborations that we were involved in early in the year in particular, in the beginning of the pandemic, were surrounding competitive debate and high school English debate. And there's just some, so let me play this. So basically some background on high school debate, competitive debate in both Korea and Japan. As Dawn has mentioned earlier, we are so close, and we have, normally we have a lot of uh, exchange, and we can actually travel to Korea. Korean students can travel to Japan, and they can compete online, or they were competing in person up until now. However, after the pandemic, it sort of became necessary that we compete online. But what was nice about having that, what was born out of that necessity sort of, is that we were able to do a lot of really interesting collaborations. And it's really exciting because I think Misa touched a little bit about this, but the level of English maybe in high schools in Japan is slightly lower than Korean high schools. And Korean high schools also have, the high school students in the competitive debating scene is extremely competitive. They have centered around, in Japan we call them juku or cram schools. In Korea, I think you call them hagwon. And they're really, it helps them get into good universities and things like that, the students. And it's being recognized as well in Japan. And it's nice to have that because the students are able to sort of uh, learn from each other. We had two main collaborations. One was we had the World Schools Debate Champion, the national teams, the Korean national team and the Japanese national team had a sparring match on Zoom, and this was held in April. And what was really great about this is that we could have, because Zoom has such a high capacity, right? If you have like an official account. So we had 300 students from both Korea and Japan watch and learn from these really high level teams, and then get advice and ask questions and things like that. And they all exchanged sort of contact information, and then they were doing sort of organic little practices with the friends that they met through this. And the other thing that we did that was nice and that sort of came out of this was a Korean Japan Online Schools Debating Championship. And it was a tournament that was held online. It was 2 days, and this was basically all student run. You had Japanese high school students, Japanese university students, Korean university students that were in the debating community, all sort of help run this tournament. So just really quickly, this was the debaters that were in the joint practice. There were several other students in the workshop. So this was really nice. And we had Korea has some really outstanding coaches. And so that was really exciting, and they were able to learn a lot. And then these are sort of just the topics that we debated, that the students debated on. And these, for those of you who are familiar with English debate, this is an impromptu topic. The topics are set out maybe to the students either 20 minutes, an hour before. There are some abbreviations. I'll explain those as we go. It's kind of a unique culture itself, but it's a nice culture to have because it sort of brings a lot of students together, and it's a nice place where the students are able to collaborate. So these were the topics that the students debated the first day. It was, I think, maybe 40 teams, 20 teams from Korea, 20 teams from Japan. And so first round was about education. THBT stands for This House Believes That Schools Should Switch to Pass-Fail grading systems. So we had high school students talk about this and debate about this. And then the second round was science and technology. And THW stands for This House Would. So this house would allow science, technology, engineering, and math employees to sue employers for misuse of technology they helped develop. This is quite an interesting topic for the students. And the third round was about society, and it was talking about biometrics. There was an explanation of what biometrics was, and the students debated, this house believes that governments should actively implement biometric surveillance measures. And this was very interesting because I think there were some teams that had Chinese students, either studying internationally and things like that. So there's some interesting perspectives on this. And the last round, the fourth round on the first day was about sort of social movements, and it was about online activism. And the topic that the students debated was, this house believes that online activism is more effective than offline or traditional activism. And sort of the winners of the tournament were the Korean national team, of course, because they're really quite amazing. And the whole World Schools debate, in the final World Schools debate, what was really nice about this year is that Korea did really well in World Schools in the final championship, and Japan also did the best that they've ever done. And this was all held online and things like that. It was a really nice opportunity, and having these online collaborations sort of happening organic and through students, they might use Facebook, or they might use, certain, Line or WhatsApp to like get connected. And it's really happening a lot organically, and it's really exciting. So I think I may have gone over my time, but if you'd like to talk about it later, I can share more. So thank you very much.
Hi, oh my gosh, I just love all your presentations. I'm so excited. There's so much to say about it. Oh, before I start mine, just a few thoughts. Of course, I met Don a couple times through the conference, and I really look forward to touching base with you more. Miso, it was just really nice to hear everything that you had to say, as well as Aaron. Maybe as I go through my presentation, I'll reflect on some integration of the ideas that I was considering as you were discussing that. So let me just share my screen with you, and I will get into it. Okay, so I'm really keen on making inroads between our organizations, Korea TESOL and JELT. I'll tell you a little bit about me. I came to Korea in 2002 from Canada originally, after doing NGO work in Africa, and fell in love with, the expat lifestyle. Japan, I also traveled in 2002. I've probably been at least 20 times, quite a few times, to Tokyo, Osaka, Fukuoka. I've been to Nagoya, Okinawa, Hokkaido. Not enough. And that was just random meandering for the most part, some of it conferencing as well. And this has been my fifth or sixth year of involvement in Korea TESOL in various levels. So right now I'm the first vice president, and my charge is the chapters of COTESOL and looking after them and encouraging them. So particularly with JALT, the first time that I went was for the international conference in Nagoya in 2019 as a presenter. And then I decided to become a member of JALT. So I'm a JALT member as well. Signed up with Joe Tomei, who is a wizard. We all love him so much. And he signed me up with the Fukuoka chapter, where I joined the Pi SIG, and I plan to work with them as long as I can. But I'm interested in other SIGs as well. Last year I was a second VP, so SIGs are my thing. In Korea, I started the Women and Gender Equality SIG and the Environmental Justice SIG under the umbrella of the Social Justice SIG, and we have a panel on Thursday. Welcome you to come to that. So SIGs are not quite as developed in Korea. They're more of a fringe benefit, but I would like to direct us into the way that Japan has really built it up. So we are talking about having a pan SIG event sometime, possibly. The last time that I was in Japan and last time that I left the country was to go to Hokkaido presenting, particularly for the Pi SIG at the Pi Brain and Critical Thinking conference that was held there. I had a really great time. And I was also presenting in the online conference with Eventzilla. At the conference, I did my presentation with the Pi SIG in a panel, and I reached out to some conference planners as a result, had some interviews online with several conference planners and leaders, and I wrote an article for our quarterly magazine in COTESOL that's coming out next month. Some photos here. So that is Nagoya, the first picture. My special interests at that time were creativity and film in ELT. So I was talking about film projects that I did with my students, and I was really excited to see what Erin had to say about the collaboration. We were actually planning to have a film festival in Nagoya this year or last year, but it was canceled because of COVID. And it is a lot more difficult to work on group projects teaching online. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm encouraged and emboldened to see the possibilities of having students work together by seeing what's possible with that competition. There's a little picture of Hokkaido taken from a conference window. And then in my presentation in Hokkaido, we had a game playing with cups. So try that sometime. These are some pictures of interviews that I had with JALT 2020 conference leaders. In the first picture, you can see Michael Free, who's the chair of the international conference, with Bill Pillow and Wayne Malcolm. And that was one of the first interviews I had to just discuss what was going on at the conference and how the foundations were created and the directions that the leaders had and the vision they had. And then the second picture is the JALT fire station. So they managed the Zoom room hosts. Wow, that was a big job. And I have a special appreciation for that because I was part of the committee that moved our national conference in 2020 from an offline to an online event with very short notice. And there's it's a steep upward learning curve to deal with technology issues with such a big group. And then we have a meeting where it was discussed and implemented that we would use Eventzilla for the IC. IC meaning International Conference of COTESOL. Fun times with the Pi SIG. So when you do online events with adults, they want social spaces. And this is probably where I started to get addicted to wearing hats. This is a debriefing session with the Pi SIG members. We talked about how our presentation went and just got to know each other a little better. I was lucky that I got to meet them all, well, most of them before at an offline event and then online event. So following the experience I had as a presenter at the JALT 2020 online, I was able to invite some people to present at the Busan chapter. So in the Korea TESOL organization, you don't have to be a member to participate in our chapter events and our SIG events. So we organize things a little bit differently. if you do want to present at a chapter event, we have a lot of different chapters. There's things going on every month with all of them, and all of our various SIGs are really dying to have people step up and just, inject some new ideas in there. So this is a plea. Call on me if you want to do something like that. What do I think we can do? So many things. Like Dawn was saying, the movement from physical space to online space creates infinite space. And what used to involve a flight and booking a hotel and dealing with visas and a lot of expensive time and energy can just be a click of the mouse. So we should definitely have more collaboration for conferences. COTISO will have a national conference in the fall. I'm not sure about the details yet, but keep an ear out for that. As well as next year, the talk right now is a hybrid event. It'll depend on how things go in the pandemic. As I mentioned, if you'd like to present at a chapter meeting, I can help you arrange that. Perhaps interviews. We have a new podcast in COTISO. We have a very active PR committee. Korea is a very small country, but there are some differences between our organizations. One of them is that if you go to almost any big conference in Korea, you will meet a lot of people. And again at every event, you're going to see them. In Japan, it's a lot more difficult to travel domestically. So Japan and JALT, they're very extensively developed, especially for research and publications. And you have a good 20 years on us, I think, in the history of your development, just like ELT first came to Japan. So a lot of people would come to Asia to teach English much earlier to Japan than Korea. But I feel like culturally, Korea and Japan have a brother-sister relationship, you know, and Japan has a more international mindset in a certain way. Maybe that's why they speak of English ELF, as you said. But Korea is an economy that must survive based on creating, a lot of Korean students have to learn other languages to develop. That's possibly one of the reasons that the TOEIC scores are a little bit higher, just out of basic necessity of survival. So I would really like to talk about the possibilities. Just before I had this meeting today, I was given an invitation from a university to create a project developing an online TOEIC class. So I thought that was really funny to hear Miso talk about that. And I'd like to pick your brain on some ideas, perhaps. We'd love to just have more and more sharing of media content. And I think that JALT really leads the way in writing and research. And Korea also has opportunities for publication if you want to try putting your papers in a different place. So all of that is wonderful, but moreover, what I would love to see is Korea and Japan develop a model for intercountry collaboration with online events and then expand to other parts of Asia, Malaysia, Taiwan, Thailand, as well as globally. Okay, so that is pretty much what I had to say for now until we get into the breakout rooms. Thanks, guys.
Could we all just take a minute to unmute our microphones and to applaud for all of the speakers tonight? Thank you very much for your great.
Thank you.
Okay, so next what we'll do is we will break out into 4 rooms. Each room will be dedicated to one of the speakers tonight. So I suggest maybe we'll have some Q&A in the rooms and some discussion about what was going on. And then I think after about 15 minutes, let's try to remix the rooms. And maybe you have a second area that you also want to find out more about and maybe report a little bit about what you talked about in your first room. And as always, meet each other, find what kinds of ways you can connect together and collaborate together. Okay, so rooms can be chosen. If you need help getting into a room, I can send you to one. Hi, Ray. Do you need some help?
Yeah.
What room would you like to go with Rhea?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be in there too.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
Dawn has brought us back.
Yes, sorry to interrupt such really great and stimulating conversations. I just wanted us to have a chance to, one, meet someone else, at least one other person, and then two, just to kind of reflect or report back what were we talking about, or what kind of new ideas did we come up with during the course of our conversation. So we'll have about 5 minutes to do that before we come back into the main room to say goodbye. Let's see, I'd like to kind of mix up the rooms as much as possible so that more people can meet each other. Could we just, sorry, take 1 second.
Okay.
Hi, Angel, are you okay? Or do you need,
I'm looking for, I think it was Aaron's.
okay. Oh, sorry, it's a random room right now.
Ah, thank you.
Sure, okay. How was the other room?
Oh, it was great. I think we're on a tight timeline though. The
Yes.
next session starts really soon, so we should exit.
Thank you everyone so much for coming tonight, and we are going to have to end here, so let's keep those conversations going in the future. So thank you and take care. Good night.
Oh, okay.
Oh, let's share some ideas on Discord, I think. Our
Yes.
collaboration ideas. Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.